Hey, this is Chip coming at you with the next Team Chip Minute. We have a great Team Chip Minute coming this week via an awesome Team Chip Taekwondo student, Miss Laura. This week we're going to talk about making assumptions. You know what I'm talking about. Stereotyping, taking things for granted, just kind of assuming that dinner's going to be made when you get home and the house is going to be clean and life is good. Or just assuming that because that guy drives a really nice car, he must be really rich. Or has a really big house, he must be really wealthy and life must be really great. Well, sometimes things aren't always what they seem. So what I'm going to do, I've got a story here, and I believe I picked the story up from Dr. Stephen Covey. An amazing story. And it's a story about a guy who daily commutes on the subway. He gets on the subway, he pops out his newspaper, he has about a 30-minute ride, and lo and behold, another man comes in and sits down beside him. And the guy sits beside him. Well, the guy that sits beside him, the commuter's trying to read his paper. He's trying to stay focused. And the guy sits next to him. Well, the guy that sits next to him has 3 little children. And these little children, man, they're bouncing like bop, bop, bop. They're everywhere. Bumping the newspaper, they're squawking, they're making noise. And the commuter looks over to the guy, and the guy's like this. He's just kind of out of it. He's like, so he's sitting there, and he's like, he can't focus on his reading. He can't focus on his paper. He's just like, man, I want to read my paper before I get to work so I can be prepared for my day. And he's having trouble getting it done. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm kind of thinking, maybe we need to ask this guy to calm those kids down. Well, that's what the commuter decides to do. So he folds up the newspaper, he lays it in his lap, and he looks to his left and he says, excuse me, sir, could you do something with your children? And the guy that's sitting there, he turns and looks at him. He says, oh man, I'm really sorry. I didn't even realize it was happening. We just left the hospital. My wife just passed away. Wow. How does that make you feel about making an assumption? When you didn't know the whole story, you didn't have the whole picture. You just assumed that this was a guy that come in, didn't care about your space. You just assumed he didn't care about his kids. You just assumed. But when you found out the whole story, I don't know about you, but I felt about that big whenever I first read that story. That story changed me. It made a major impact in my life. So I want you to ponder that. Should we make assumptions? Should we stereotype people? In class it happens all the time. Someone comes in and maybe they're a little older and the bag holder holds the bag a little extra low because, well, they probably just can't kick that high. Don't assume things like that about people just because of what they appear to be on the outside. So with that said, let me change your picture here. Now, I'm going to look you in your eye and tell you you're awesome. Caught you assuming, didn't I?